Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to create a professional 3D animation without using any plugins. Let's dive right in. First, let's create a new composition and give it a name. Next, switch to the 3D Renderer tab and make sure the renderer is set to Advanced 3D. If it's set to something else, simply select Advanced 3D from the drop-down list and click OK to finish setting up the composition. Now, let me create a new solid layer and name it Background. The solid's original color doesn't matter much, as we'll be applying effects over it. From the Effects and Presets panel, find the Gradient Ramp effect and drag it onto the solid layer. Finally, head over to the Effect Controls panel to adjust your background colors. Feel free to choose whichever colors best suit your project. Now, let's create a cube in our scene using the Tools panel. If you don't see this tool, you're likely using an older version of After Effects, so I recommend updating to the latest release. Select the cube layer and open the Properties panel in the top right corner. This is where all the layer attributes and settings are located. Under Mesh Options, we can adjust the cube's width, length, and height. To round out these sharp edges, head to Bevel Options and set the radius value to 5. Finally, let's rotate the cube to get it ready for animation. Great! Now, select the cube layer and press Ctrl-D on your keyboard to duplicate it. In the Mesh options for this new layer, reduce the height value and position it directly on top of the first cube. Perfect! Lastly, select both layers and drag them down slightly to set their final positions. Now, let's import the shoe model into our scene. On the pop-up window, simply click OK without changing any settings. Once the shoe model is in the scene, let's quickly align it so it sits right in the center of the cube. After resetting our workspace view, we can adjust the rotation of the shoe model. Great! Next, select each of the two cubes one by one, go to the Materials section in the Properties panel, and match their colors using references directly from the shoe. Now, let's add a camera to our scene. We'll leave the settings as they are, using a 50mm lens. Once the camera is added, use the camera tools at the top to zoom out slightly from the scene and adjust its position downward. To control the camera movement easily, select the camera layer and click Create Orbit Null. Great! With the camera selected, press P on your keyboard to reveal the position property and set a keyframe at the first second. Next, move 3 seconds forward on the timeline, push the camera in closer to the model, and shift it slightly down. Select all keyframes and press F9 to apply Easy Ease for smooth motion. Finally, open the graph editor and fine-tune the speed curve to make the transitions seamless. Right at this moment, we want the shoe model to float upward. Let's select the shoe layer and bring up its position and rotation properties. We'll add keyframes for both Y rotation and position at the start. Then, move to the 3-second mark, lift the shoe higher, and set the Y rotation to -35 degrees. To make the shoe rotate smoothly around its own axis, let's create a new null object and enable its 3D layer switch. Move back to the beginning of the timeline, align the null object directly to the center of the model, and parent the shoe layer to this null object. With the null object selected, reveal its rotation properties and keyframe the Y rotation. Jump to the 3-second mark once more and rotate the model along its axis. Excellent! Now select all keyframes and press F9 to apply Easy Ease. Finally, open the graph editor and adjust the speed curve to match our previous setup. Let's do a quick preview to check the result. Great. Now, we don't want the model to come to a complete stop after rotating. We want it to keep spinning smoothly. To achieve this, jump to the last keyframe and duplicate the null object layer. Press U on your keyboard to reveal all active keyframes and clear them out. Next, step back a bit on the timeline. Right about here looks perfect. At this point, add a new keyframe to the Y rotation parameter. Then advance to the 7-second mark, parent the original null object to our newly duplicated null object, and apply a subtle, continuous rotation. Let's quickly preview the timeline to review the final result. Great! Now let's apply the same rotation effect to our cube platform. Create another null object, move it above the cube layer, and convert it to a 3D layer. Center this null object precisely over the cube layer. Next, select both cube layers and parent them to this new null object. Select the null object, open its rotation properties, and add a keyframe to the Y rotation parameter. Jump forward to the 3-second mark and set the rotation angle. Finally, select all keyframes, apply Easy Ease, and open the graph editor. To keep the animation consistent throughout the scene, fine-tune the speed curve so it perfectly matches our previous setup. Now let's create another null object and turn it into a 3D layer. Step back to the very beginning of the timeline, parent our camera orbit null object to this new null object, and open up its position properties. We're going to apply the exact same technique we used on the shoe layer. This ensures the camera doesn't freeze after the initial push-in, but instead continues to drift forward slowly and smoothly. Let me do another quick preview to inspect our progress. I highly recommend running these quick previews regularly so you can catch and resolve any issues right away. Now, let's jump to the 7-second mark once again. Select every layer where we previously added keyframes and press U on your keyboard to reveal all active keyframes. At this point, let's add a new keyframe for each of these layers. Next, advance to the 10-second mark on the timeline. We'll select the initial keyframes from the very beginning, copy them, and paste them right here at 10 seconds. Go ahead and repeat this copy-paste step for the other 2 layers as well. Once that's done, select the Easy Ease keyframes, open the graph editor, and fine-tune their speed curve so they perfectly match our initial timing. Let's run a quick preview to double-check the movement. Excellent, everything looks completely smooth. Finally, select all layers and collapse their settings to clean up our timeline panel. Great, now to make our scene look even better, let's add a light source. Set the light type to Environment and click OK to bring it into our scene. To ensure our shadows look clean and accurate, open Render Options under the Advanced tab and choose Fit to Scene. This will properly align the shadow projections within our workspace. We're not quite done yet, so let's import our HDR texture layer into the timeline and hide its visibility by clicking the eye icon. Next, open the environment light settings and select our HDR layer as the source. Perfect. Now, expand the transform properties and adjust the X and Y rotation values to direct the light onto the model from the best possible angle. If the shadows still don't show up, don't worry. This is a common issue. To fix it, let's add another light source to the scene and set its light type to Ambient. There we go. The shadows are now visible. However, the overall scene is a bit too bright. Open the ambient light settings and lower the intensity value. This completely eliminates the glare, giving us sharp, balanced shadows. Awesome! Everything looks great so far. Now, to enhance our scene, let's add some realistic window light and tree shadow projections in the background. First, import the window image onto our timeline, place it right above the background layer, and convert it to a 3D layer. With the layer selected, open its position settings and push it back along the Z-axis behind all other elements. Next, open the scale settings and enlarge the image so it fully covers the composition. From the Effects and Presets panel, drag the Gaussian blur effect onto this layer. Set the blurriness value to 10 and uncheck Repeat Edge Pixels. Perfect. Now head back to the project panel and drag the tree shadow layer into the scene. Apply a fill effect to this layer and change its color to solid black. Open Position, make this layer 3D as well, and push it backward on the Z-axis. Open the scale settings to enlarge it, then adjust the Z rotation to angle the shadow naturally. Since it looks a bit small, let's scale it up just a little more. Press T on your keyboard to reveal the opacity setting and drop it down to 15% so it blends seamlessly with the background. Now apply the Gaussian blur effect to this shadow layer too. Set the blurriness to 10 and uncheck Repeat Edge Pixels once again. Excellent. To give this shadow a natural swaying movement, let's add the Turbulent Displace effect. In the Effect Controls panel, set the amount to 10 and the size to 15. To animate the motion, hold down the Alt key and click the stopwatch next to Evolution. In the expression box that appears, type Time times 100. This creates a smooth wind effect, making the tree shadow gently sway in the breeze. Great! Now, for our final step, let's place our text behind the model. First, select the Text tool and type out your word. Double-click the text to activate the Fill setting and turn off the Stroke option. Open the Scale property and quickly enlarge the text. Use the Align panel to center the text in the composition. Once centered behind the model, let's scale it up just a bit more. Finally, drag the text layer all the way down so it sits behind all our 3D models. Step back to the very beginning of the timeline. This time, instead of keyframing manually, let's open the Animation Composer plugin, select a suitable text preset, and apply it to our layer. Let's precisely time the text's entrance and its exit right as the shoe model returns to its original position. Perfect. Select all layers and enable the motion blur switch for that polished, cinematic look. And there you have it. Our animation is complete. Let's do a quick preview render to review our final result and ensure every detail is spot on. Finally, let's trim our work area to 11 seconds. Now, let's render a quick preview and check out our final animation. That wraps it up. Step by step, we created a professional 3D model animation entirely inside After Effects without relying on third-party plugins. If you found this tutorial helpful, please hit the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more motion design tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.